I am tracking a major shift in the weather pattern across the United States, and what is happening right now is extremely unusual and increasingly dangerous. Over the next several days, we are going to see one of the most dramatic temperature contrasts I have tracked in recent years, with life-threatening Arctic cold gripping the eastern United States, while record-breaking warmth spreads across the central and western portions of the country. This is what meteorologists call a pattern flip, and it does not happen often. When it does, it creates conditions that can be deadly on one side and unprecedented on the other. Right now, the eastern United States is dealing with dangerous cold that is producing wind chills as low as 30 degrees below zero in some locations, and this cold is not going anywhere anytime soon. At the same time, areas across the plains are experiencing temperatures that are running 30 to 40 degrees above normal, which is creating a completely different set of hazards. What makes this pattern so concerning is not just the extremes, but what happens when these two air masses begin to interact. We are already seeing signals that a major storm system could develop later this week, and if that storm tracks the way I think it will, we could be looking at significant severe weather across the South and heavy snow across parts of the Midwest and Northeast. I want to walk you through exactly what is happening, where the biggest threats are, and what you need to be prepared for over the next 7 to 10 days. Let me start with the cold side of this pattern because that is where the most immediate danger is right now. As of this morning, Arctic air has fully settled into the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast, and temperatures are running 15 to 25 degrees below normal across a large area. If you are waking up this morning in places like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, or Boston, you are dealing with temperatures in the single digits and wind chills that are well below zero. This is the kind of cold that is dangerous if you are not prepared. Frostbite can occur in a matter of minutes on exposed skin when wind chills drop below minus 20 degrees. And we are seeing that in many locations across the Great Lakes and interior New England this morning. The coldest air is centered over the interior Northeast right now, and that is where we are seeing the most extreme wind chills. Areas like the Adirondacks in New York, the Green Mountains in Vermont, and the White Mountains in New Hampshire are dealing with wind chills approaching minus 30 degrees this morning, and that is life-threatening cold. This cold air is being reinforced by a strong high-pressure system that is sitting over eastern Canada, and that high-pressure system is funneling Arctic air southward across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. As long as that high-pressure system remains in place, the cold is going to continue. Right now, I am expecting this pattern to hold through at least the middle of next week, which means we are looking at several more days of dangerous cold across the eastern United States. Tomorrow morning is going to be just as cold, if not colder, than this morning in many locations. Cities like Albany, Syracuse, Burlington, and Portland, Maine are going to wake up to temperatures in the single digits and wind chills well below zero. Even further south, areas like northern Pennsylvania, central New York, and the higher elevations of West Virginia are going to be dealing with sub-zero wind chills tomorrow morning. Now let me shift to the other side of this pattern, because what is happening in the central and western United States is equally remarkable, just in the opposite direction. Right now, we are tracking a strong ridge of high pressure that is sitting over the western United States, and this ridge is pumping warm air northward out of the desert southwest and the southern plains. This warm air is creating temperature departures that are 30 to 40 degrees above normal in some locations, and we are seeing record high temperatures being approached or broken in multiple states. Yesterday, we saw temperatures in the low 70s across parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and South Dakota, and today is going to be even warmer. By this afternoon, I am expecting temperatures to reach the mid to upper 70s across central and western Kansas, and we could see a few locations approach 80 degrees. That is absolutely remarkable for early February. This warmth is not limited to the plains. It is also spreading into the Rockies and the desert southwest, where temperatures are running 20 to 30 degrees above normal. Cities like Denver, Albuquerque, and Phoenix are all experiencing unseasonably warm conditions, and this warmth is going to continue for at least the next several days. What is particularly unusual about this warmth is how far north it is extending. We are seeing temperatures in the 60s and 70s as far north as the Dakotas and Montana, which is extremely rare for this time of year. This is being driven by a strong southwesterly flow aloft that is bringing moisture and warmth northward out of Mexico and the Gulf of California. Now here is where things start to get really interesting, and this is the part of the forecast that has the most uncertainty, but also the highest potential for significant impacts. When you have a temperature contrast this extreme across the country, you create an environment that is very favorable for storm development. Cold air and warm air do not like to exist next to each other, and when they are forced together, the atmosphere tries to balance things out by creating storms. Right now, we are watching the potential for a significant storm system to develop later this week as the cold air in the east begins to slowly retreat and the warm air in the plains begins to push eastward. The exact timing and track of this storm are still uncertain, but confidence is increasing that we are going to see some sort of significant weather event between Thursday and Saturday of this week. The areas that are most at risk right now are the southern plains, the mid-Mississippi Valley, and the Ohio Valley. If this storm develops the way the models are suggesting, we could be looking at severe weather across parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The main threats would be damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornadoes. The severe weather threat is still several days away, so the details are going to change, but the ingredients are starting to come together. We have warm, moist air surging northward out of the Gulf of Mexico, we have strong wind shear in the atmosphere, and we have a jet stream that is going to be in a favorable position to support storm development. That is a recipe for severe weather, and people across the southern plains and the lower Mississippi Valley need to be paying attention to the forecast over the next few days. On the northern side of this storm system, we could be looking at significant snow. Right now, the areas that have the highest potential for heavy snow are the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. Cities like Minneapolis, Des Moines, Madison, and Green Bay could all be in play for significant snowfall if this storm tracks the way I think it will. It is still too early to talk about specific snow totals, but I would not be surprised if some areas end up with 6 to 12 inches of snow from this system. The snowfall forecast is going to become more clear over the next 24 to 48 hours as the models come into better agreement on the track of the storm. One of the reasons this storm has so much potential is the timing. We are looking at a storm that could be impacting a large portion of the country during the Valentine's Day weekend, which is one of the busiest travel weekends of the year. If this storm develops and tracks across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, it could create significant travel disruptions across a large area. Airports in cities like Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Detroit could all see delays and cancellations, and road travel could become hazardous across a multi-state area. I am not trying to alarm anyone, but I do want people to be aware that this is a possibility. And if you have travel plans for next weekend, you need to be monitoring the forecast closely. Let me walk you through the timeline in more detail so you understand how this pattern is going to evolve over the next several days. Starting with today, the Arctic cold is going to remain entrenched across the east. Temperatures today are going to struggle to get out of the teens and 20s across much of the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. Wind chills are going to remain below zero across the interior Northeast, and anyone who has to spend time outdoors needs to be dressed appropriately. At the same time, the warmth in the plains is going to continue to build. By this afternoon, we are going to see temperatures in the 70s across a large portion of Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, and that warmth is going to spread eastward into Missouri and Iowa. Tomorrow, the pattern is going to look very similar. The cold is going to remain in place across the east, with another morning of single-digit temperatures and sub-zero wind chills. The warmth in the plains is going to continue, with temperatures once again reaching the 70s across the central plains. By tomorrow afternoon, we are going to start to see the first signs of the pattern beginning to shift. The ridge over the west is going to start to weaken slightly, and the trough over the east is going to begin to lift northward. This is the beginning of the transition that is going to set the stage for the storm development later in the week. By Wednesday, the pattern shift is going to become more obvious. The cold air in the east is going to start to retreat northward, and the warm air in the plains is going to start to push eastward. This is when we are going to start to see the temperature contrast really intensify along a line from Texas northward through the Midwest and into the Great Lakes. This temperature boundary is going to be the focal point for storm development, and by Wednesday evening, we could start to see the first signs of a low pressure system beginning to organize somewhere over the southern plains or the lower Mississippi Valley. Thursday is when things are really going to start to ramp up. If the storm develops the way the models are showing, we could be looking at severe weather across the south by Thursday afternoon and evening. Areas like eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi need to be prepared for the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms. At the same time, snow could be developing across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. The exact location of the heaviest snow is still uncertain, but areas from Nebraska northeastward through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan need to be monitoring the forecast closely. Friday and Saturday are when this storm could be at its peak. If the storm tracks across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, we could be looking at a multi-state area dealing with significant impacts. Heavy snow could be falling across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, while severe weather continues across the South. Travel could become very difficult across a large portion of the country, and this could create significant disruptions for Valentine's Day weekend plans. Looking beyond this potential storm, the pattern is going to remain variable through the rest of February. We are not going back to the extreme cold that we saw earlier this week, at least not across the eastern United States. Instead, we are going to see a pattern that is characterized by above normal temperatures across much of the country, with periodic disturbances moving through that bring rounds of rain, snow, and possibly severe weather. The overall signal for the rest of February is for temperatures to remain above normal across the central and eastern United States, which is good news for anyone who is tired of the cold. However, above normal temperatures do not mean we are done with winter. We could still see snow and ice events, especially across the northern tier of the country, and we could still see cold snaps that bring temperatures back below normal for short periods of time. One thing I want to emphasize is that this forecast is still evolving. The potential storm later this week is still several days away, and the details are going to change as we get more data. The track of the storm is going to determine who sees the heaviest snow and who sees the most severe weather, and right now there is still a lot of uncertainty in the track. What I can tell you with confidence is that the pattern is set up for a significant weather event, and people across a large portion of the country need to be paying attention to the forecast and making sure they are prepared. If you are in the eastern United States and you are dealing with the dangerous cold right now, make sure you are limiting your time outdoors and make sure you are dressed appropriately when you do have to go outside. Frostbite and hypothermia are real threats in this kind of cold, and you need to take them seriously. If you are in the central or western United States and you are experiencing the warmth, enjoy it while it lasts, but be aware that the pattern is going to change and we could be dealing with severe weather later this week. And if you have travel plans for next weekend, make sure you are monitoring the forecast closely because this potential storm could create significant disruptions across a large area. I will continue to monitor this pattern closely over the coming days, and I will provide updates as the forecast becomes more clear. This is a serious weather pattern, and it has the potential to produce high-impact weather across multiple regions. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for continued coverage.